Hi, welcome to the morning walk with Bill Corley. So one of the reasons why I started this was to avoid getting into comment wars in social media on topics that I feel strongly about, because you can't win a social media argument, frankly. People believe what they're going to believe, generally speaking. You might be able to persuade a few people in the margin, but getting into a comment war is only going to get people really upset with you. And what's the point of that? That said, you can make a video, put it out there, and now that's your sort of opinion in toto, or at least a large portion of it, and people can react or not to that. What I'm going to try today is to make a video and then maybe post that as a response, or post a link to it as a response to an ongoing comment thread. So we'll see how that works. I'm going to talk about two things today. So this video can be equally well used in arguments with both liberals and conservatives. Both groups which I really don't have any they're not intellectual fellow travelers of mine, let's just say. I think both groups have wildly unexamined assumptions, most of which are false. They have views of history which are superficial and uninformed, and they don't really look up information that contradicts their viewpoint. Instead, a story comes out. Let me give you the cycle. A story comes out in the news. Usually it's some kind of a tragic story. Some accident, something like that, whatever it is. And then this is used by either the liberals or the conservatives to make some kind of a moral point that people that disagree with them are somehow, in an indirect way, responsible for the kind of tragedy that they're referring to. The two typical issues where liberals and conservatives get all worked up are the subjects that are the G's, gays and guns. I often say that folks that fundamentally have issues with guns have never lived in a part of the country where the majority of people are gun owners, and for the most part have never themselves handled and fired weapons under the direction and coaching of a professional instructor, and so they don't even really know what they're talking about. And most conservatives that rail on about gays don't really know a well-adjusted gay person in their own life. So they either have experience with kids or what they see on parades on TV or whatever else. And the liberals that talk about the guns have themselves never fired guns, or really have never been in that culture, so it's foreign to them. And it's easy to basically demonize the other when you don't really have any personal direct experience. And when you really point this out to people, that they're demonizing groups of people. In the case of gays, it's probably 10 million Americans that identify as exclusively gay, and in the case of gun ownership, probably over 100 million Americans that are active owners of firearms. When you demonize groups that contain millions of people, you're wrong. You're just wrong. Of course, the conservatives will say, well, we demonize murderers, but there's not millions of murderers. But whenever you push on folks on these issues, they get really, really upset, and they don't respond typically in a logical means and say, well, I believe what I believe precisely because of X, Y, and Z. It's always emotional, knee-jerk responses to these things. Well, guns are bad, okay? The Bible says being gay is wrong, okay? I'm entitled to those opinions. Well, yeah, of course you're entitled to those opinions. What you're not entitled to do, is to use, or frankly to advocate the use of violence to kill or cage those who do what they're doing in contravention to your opinions. In other words, to use the force of law to discriminate against gay people, or to use the force of law to cage gun owners. Doing both of those things, putting laws in place that allow you to do those things, are worse than the tragedies or the social awkwardness, or whatever you want to call it, that gets you all so animated. In other words, the idea that we can just discriminate against 3 million people or 10 million people in the country, that's going to lead to holding marriage together by limiting to being between a man and a woman, or that somehow banning the private possession of defensive firearms is somehow going to make this nation safer. So how about this? With one exception, every mass shooting that's occurred in America since the 1930s has taken place on property where the private possession of firearms has been explicitly banned. You know, in the latest Colorado shooting, there were a dozen theaters within half hour's driving distance of the shooter's home. He went to the one theater that had a sign up declaring that the theater was a gun-free zone. I don't think that's coincidence. Now, you could all get up in arms about the idea, well, you know, if you don't ban these things, then it'll be worse, but this is fear. This is fear-mongering that the vast and overwhelming majority of gun owners are irresponsible, when in fact that's not the case. When in fact you have to bring up every single time there's a gun tragedy in America, no matter where it is, it's on national news, because there's so few of them. That said, the media fails to report outside of the local scene the far more, hundreds of times more frequent cases where people that own guns in a private capacity use them for affirmative defense against predatory scum in their own environments who have come to kill, rape, or rob them. Okay, it's 100 to 1, the ratio of successful use of guns to the tragedies that occur. And in the same way, you know, everyone that talks to me that says that, you know, the civilization itself is going to collapse if gay people get married and adopt kids and raise families. Well, you know what? Gay people are married, and they are adopting, and they are raising families. They're just not getting this. They're just not getting the same rights and privileges that straight people get when they declare that they're going to do these things, right? So, you know, I'm married to Bobby. You know, we had the ceremony. We got married. Yeah, we're in this. But to say that we don't function in every way the same as a married couple, and that when we adopt a child, that we will somehow be fundamentally different from a societal viewpoint as a family. So therefore, I should have to pay $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a year more in taxes because I'm not real. Somehow our family isn't real. I mean, it's just blatant discrimination is what it is. And all these appeals to some sort of existentialism of the family, you know, that flies in the face of the reality. Like these people believe somehow that they could prevent us from getting together. You know, I guess y'all lost it when it was decided that we weren't going to be murdered anymore, when it was decided by society collectively, I guess, or by most people, that it was no longer okay to murder the gays. When murder no longer became acceptable, then the whole rest really became unacceptable, right? Of course, a solution to that would be, frankly, to excise the word marriage and family from the U.S. legal code, would be to, frankly, get rid of all of the interventions of government in the family and in society that require all of these laws these 1,138 laws that privilege people in one way or another by their married status. And likewise, getting back around to the whole discussion of the gun debate, I would just say, remember, the purpose isn't to hunt. Okay? The purpose isn't for sport of any kind. The reason why adult human beings have the inalienable right to possess weapons of destruction, weapons of, let's say, individual destruction, because that's what a gun is. You might be able to kill a certain number of individuals with a weapon, but still, it's not a weapon of mass destruction, it's a weapon of individual destruction. That this right streams inherently from your right to defend your own life and your family's lives. And that right exists before the state, before government, before all of these other units. First, there's the individual, then there's the individual in the context of family. And then there's all of the other intermediary institutions, both social and legal, that surround us. But at base, the right to defend is inherent to you being a human being. And the idea that, oh, only special people who put on uniforms and badges, only those people have the right to defend you, and if you're in need of defense and those people aren't around, well, I guess just sucks to be you. You know, one person summed it up like when in one of these recent tragedies when a kid died, the kid stupidly died because the parents left a weapon alone with him and he killed his sister or whatever, that you know, when asked about it, the mother, probably in a state of extreme grief, said something to the effect of, you know, I guess it was his time to go with God, and then all the responses, oh, what kind of a monstrous God do you believe in? One that grants solace in times of grief, I guess, would be the answer that woman would make to the snarky comment of essentially berating a mother at the time of grief of her loss of child. But I don't know, it just frustrates me to no end that despite the fact that we have in the United States one of the most despicable, evil institutions on the planet right now, the United States government, that goes around indiscriminately murdering people abroad in large numbers to pursue its goal of world domination. And you really can't call it anything else than that. The military's own master plan calls it full spectrum dominance, in which every single country on this earth either is a fellow traveler or a client state. And we dominate the planet with force of arms by murdering anyone that gets in our way. I mean, that is the nature of our government. That's why we're hated all around the world, not necessarily as individual Americans, but our government is hated everywhere because we're a huge, murderous, thug-like bully. And I don't care who's at the top of that, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or Mitt Romney or George W. Bush or Bill Clinton or George Bush Sr., and you just keep going back. These are bad, bad, bad people, the worst human beings that America possibly has. You know, it's almost like if you want to know who the biggest sociopaths in the United States are, look at the highest echelons of public office, and there you will find them. Because these people love it. They love the idea of murder and mayhem and death and destruction and power. Above all for them is power, the lust to be able, through their own words. You know, I mean, Obama gets once a week, they bring him the playing cards, and he gets to decide who dies. Right? I mean, no legal process, no nothing. I mean, we haven't even declared war. That's an anachronism. For God's sakes, the president is the imperial power on earth. And if he says someone ought to die, well, that should be good enough for you rubes, right? I mean, this is the institution that you think is going to protect you. They're not going to protect you. They're going to protect themselves. And you want them to come in and disarm the 100 million Americans who are all that stand between us and chaos. It ain't the police. They're too busy arresting people for petty drug crimes and eating donuts and collecting $100,000 pensions after careers in which they've never been in danger and never taken a weapon out of the holster except at a shooting range. I guess I become very frustrated indeed by simple-minded discourse that passes for some kind of an informed debate by people completely ignorant of history, that somehow think being in America, this is the exceptionalism. It can't happen here. It is happening here. It's happening all around, and they just haven't come for you yet, right? They haven't come for the useful idiots yet. So, kind to one another. Bye.